Happy podcasting day, everybody. Gentlemen, congratulations on the great win over the reigning Super Bowl champions. Well done. Applause for everyone.
I forgot about that whole Super Bowl thing.
It was the shell of a Super Bowl team, but you know what? The great thing about the NFL is a win is a win is a win.
Goddamn right.
Because any given Sunday or something.
I mean, we were almost on the opposite end of that at any given Sunday, but I
kept waiting for Zeb's 3-score win to happen. I was promised
I told you, if we don't win by 3 scores, we're trash. What does that say?
Maybe he meant 3 points.
So I want to just kind of talk about real quick. The one thing that has always irked me is that everyone's talking about, like, oh, the Rams are missing their quarterback. They're missing Aaron Donald. They're missing their wide receiver. Yes, all 3 of those players are either Pro Bowl or all-pro level. So phenomenal players. But it's not like Seattle is like the epitome of healthy. There's a lot of players that Seattle's missing as well that would make us a much better team. I always hate that because our injuries happened earlier in the year.
Would make us a much better team.
I think Jamal Adams would make us a better team. I think having healthy running backs, and I think also having Rashad Penny would make us a better team.
We started the game with Kenneth Walker, and I would say Kenneth Walker at this point is at least even, maybe even an upgrade.
But if you have Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny, don't you think that would make the team much more dynamic and therefore better?
I mean, if one of them would just stay healthy, I'd just happy with one. But
I know. I mean, we're So that's my pet peeve. My pet peeve is to treat it like, oh, Seattle just has been like this specimen of health this year, and they haven't had any obstacles with their teams. Like, no, that's not true at all.
Yeah, I legitimately feel like Jamal Adams being out. Okay, I would actually have said like Ryan Neal being out because I feel, and I can't prove this obviously, but I feel like Jamal Adams out and Ryan Neal in actually makes us better. Penny to Kenneth Walker, had Walker been healthy all game, I feel like that's a push. So I think we are kind of healthy. So I mean, now we're not because we don't have any running backs. Like as far as I could tell, my friend Yumi's going to play running back this Sunday because we don't have anybody left.
Exactly. And it doesn't help that like our entire team got the flu like that previous week. So my minor gripe, again, this is a national thing where Seattle will never get credit for the adversity that it faces. It'll just say like, oh, well, yeah, like, of course they made it through. Of course they did. It's never like, wow, Pete Carroll's doing an amazing job. I can't believe he's doing all these things. It's kind of like, oh, you proved us wrong? Okay, well, that was expected. Let's move on, talk about, you're playing some JV team, so how come you're not winning by 4 scores instead of, a late game comeback? Minor grapes. But
that's what happens when you live in Seattle, man. Like, you're so isolated. Once you guys learn English and everything, though, you'll be more incorporated.
I mean, to be fair, it was a ridiculously entertaining game. It was closer than I think any of us would have liked, but it was fun. It was great to see, and it was a really, really nice win for the Seahawks, to be sure.
I'll take it.
I mean, Zeb, you predicted the 3-score game. I predicted a close game where the Seahawks would not cover, but they would win. So I feel vindicated in that way.
Well, yeah, you were right. But to me, what that says is the team isn't as good as I wanted them to be. That's what it says to me.
Maybe it just means that we always overestimate like the gap actually between what it means on the football field when somebody's like really good and their backup. Like, I think people do that consistently.
That's definitely, I think the gap between the starter and the backup has shrunk.
I mean, like John Wolford or whatever, like that dude's a backup, but he's still like one of the top, presumably 100 best quarterbacks in the country out of 330 million people.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But we also see like that drastic drop between a great quarterback that people want to build their franchise around and a guy that is 100% a backup. Like that last throw, like I feel like I could have thrown that ball just as far as he did. And it looked like he put his entire body into it. It was flat and my favorite whipping boy, Cody Barton, was just there. Like, I mean, he could have batted it down, but hey, he got a pick, so good for him.
Stats, buddy.
Yeah, stats galore.
I just feel like the difference between like a Mahomes and a Wolford, it doesn't always show up like in the yardage or the scores. It just shows up in wins. That's how you tell the quality teams.
I think that's not only the wins, but it's the moment. So I don't know if anyone watched the Tampa Bay New Orleans game.
It was frustrating.
That game was ridiculous. It's like how did the Saints lose that game? They had a 2-score lead with 6 minutes left.
It's like for 54 minutes, Tom Brady couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then for 6 minutes, he couldn't not do anything. What?
And then on 2nd and long, Mark Ingram, I can't remember how he gets the ball, but apparently he's injured, and he stopped short of a first down. Had they gotten that first down, it would have milked another 2 minutes off the clock, and the Bucks wouldn't have had enough time. But
he apologized.
He's injured. He's injured. He's playing when he shouldn't be, which is kind of what we saw in our game. He falls short. They decide to go long, and I think the play got blown up. I thought it was the helmet to helmet, but they called it as a clean hit, and that would have sealed the game. But instead of trying to convert that short down, maybe they didn't have any more running backs like Seattle. They go for it long. They go for the kill shot, and they lose. They punt the ball, and then Tampa comes back and scores twice. You
would think with Taysom Hill on your team, you would figure something out.
Yeah, do what they did to Seattle and just run him outside because he's going to outrun the linebacker.
Put all your offensive linemen out there and Taysom Hill in a wildcat formation and just run straight.
Yeah. So crazy things happen, and I think that's that gap. It is so small, but in the moment it is so big, and I think we saw that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with Geno. But there was definitely some other shenanigans in this game. I feel like we should talk about the refereeing, the interception where Bobby literally stole the ball. I'm still having a hard time trying to understand
thought process.
It's not just the thought process, but what is a catch now? Because usually it's you're down by contact immediately. There is no grace period of when it is a catch and when it's not. They're on their back. The ball is not touched the ground, but it should be okay.
Exactly.
Possession is not a progressive thing. It's you either have possession or you don't. And once you're down, it doesn't matter what happens afterwards because you're down and possession can't be changed. I feel like they said, well, he never maintained possession long enough, and at that time, the ball hadn't touched the ground, so the ball could be stolen, and therefore it's a live ball. I have a problem with that logic.
I mean, I can see that. I mean, I can see the steps there, but the thing is, if he's on his back and the ball's in his hand, and then normally he would just be down right there. So that's the play.
Right.
It doesn't. If Bobby Wagner's not there, that's a catch. As soon as he's on the ground, it's got it in his hands. So if that's a catch at that point, but now we add in another element. There's a person there who takes it away from him, but that's too late. It's already a down ball.
They basically just said that he never had full possession. So. And since it was inbounds, it was in the field of play. It wasn't along the sidelines. There's time to lay on the ground and juggle the ball before it's considered a completed.
You can, but that's not what happened, though.
I mean, it's. I can see. I think it's a bad decision. I can see it being close. I get it. Obviously, I would have liked it to have turned out the other way.
Right.
But I don't know.
It's very frustrating.
It's one of those things where on the replays, you're supposed to look for obvious proof, right? And not still kind of be guessing whether or not something happened.
And you're meant to watch the replay at full speed because that's the whole thing. If it's not obvious at full speed.
Yeah, if the half-second catch is prolonged into 5 seconds, well, that ball's moving around an awful lot. Tony chiming in saying it was a BS call, elbow down, hip down, on his back, then Bobby got it. So that's, Tony, that's how I saw it. I said, yes, it is a split second, but that's how you rule a catch. It's when you are down by contact, it's not a continuous thing. It's once you have possession, you have possession. It's just the idea that the ground cannot cause a fumble. It doesn't matter how it happens. you don't get like this prolonged like review to say like, well, he was rolling the ball, so he could kick it around. It's like, no, you're down.
Right.
But I mean, I feel like that was the game that like the NFL world wanted Bobby to win. They wanted to say like, oh look, Seattle made a mistake by letting this guy go. I noticed a few times that Bobby was not doing a great job when he had to play in space with people behind him. Like the touchdown to Tyler Lockett, that was over Bobby's head. I mean, I don't expect Bobby to like know what's behind him, but that's the critique that I have with Cody Barton is like, he doesn't do a good job of like playing with all of that space. He seems like he's someone who is a little bit better when he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage and more of attacking, and that's really what Bobby did in this game. But I definitely saw some flaws that, Bobby in coverage, he's not that sideline to sideline speed guy, because there are a lot of passes that went past him, and yeah, he can catch up to him eventually, but he's not like chasing him down. And
I mean, his game has changed. I mean, we talked about it last year. Like last year, Bobby single-handedly revealed to the world that all of a sudden I forget his name, Tennessee's running back,
Derrick Henry
can actually catch the ball. Like Bobby Wagner like introduced that element to Derrick Henry's game by not being able to cover anymore. But he's still like super savvy. He knows what's going on. So he's lost some speed. He's lost some coverage ability. But he's super savvy. He's seen everything. So he can still make some cool plays. And he's got some straight ahead speed. So he can still do some plays. But yeah, he's not. I mean, like the Seahawks are right. Like he wasn't going to take a giant cut and pay to be with us. But he wasn't worth what his salary was anymore. So we made the right move, but I think the Rams made the right move. He's actually a good, useful piece for them.
Yeah, I mean they have him for 2 more years, so they're
Dude, he had 2 sacks. He never had 2 sacks in the game for us.
I think it's one of those things.
Motivated.
I mean, the first sack was a coverage sack. I think he just saw that like everything was kind of bottled up. Because he wasn't blitzing on that first one. It was like a coverage sack for sure, where nothing's happening. Bobby didn't have any responsibility, so he just attacked Geno, and Geno didn't have a chance to scramble. So credit to Bobby, it shows his savvy, but that's him playing towards the line of scrimmage, towards the quarterback, as to playing, in space behind him. And, not every middle linebacker is going to be like this amazing coverage guy. So I do think that it was good to see him perform so well, and it was great to see Seattle play and win.
It was kind of ideal for me. Sorry, Zeb, go ahead.
No, I was just saying yes.
I enjoyed like watching, like as long as it didn't like cost us the game. I enjoyed watching Bobby have a good game.
Yeah,
I watched him like also like hang out before the game with some players and stuff like that. I thought it was cool. Yeah. I mean, if you compare like how that went with Russ's homecoming, like when the first time Russ played against us, very different situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think nobody's gonna boo Bobby.
No, not at all. And obviously it's very different circumstances where Bobby didn't have the choice. I think he acts a little bit like sour because, again, no one wants to be cut, and he wanted everything kind of dictated in his turn because he felt he owed it. And whether or not that happened, he didn't ask to be let go, whereas Russ actively was trying to get out of Seattle. So
yeah, I think Bobby clearly wanted to retire with the same team that drafted him.
Yeah.
But I think
he wanted to be like those old school linebackers. Like
so of course there's going to be some feelings there, but ultimately you saw with all the players and even with Coach Pete, like there was nothing but love between them all. So
did you?
I mean, listening to Pete Carroll talk about him after the game was like it really kind of touched me.
Did you?
He talked about how well Bobby played and everything, and it was cool to see, and it was really. God, just the wisdom, and I mean, it sounds so it's like a honky, like weird word we don't use anymore, but like the wisdom of Pete Carroll at his age, how he's got a different perspective and everything. It's really cool to listen to him talk about that kind of situation.
Yeah. The Seahawks Twitter account posted a picture of Pete and Bobby after the game. Bobby was wearing a black T-shirt that had Jimi Hendrix and the Space Needle on it and said Seattle. So obviously there's still a lot of love between not only the coach and Bobby and also the city. So it will be great to see when he returns to Seattle in the final week of the year when the Rams come to town. But
it's probably Seattle's like next mayor.
Yeah. All right, so we got we're gonna move ahead, but the Seahawks bounce back, and Geno proves the downers for 1 week that they were wrong, as he led the team on a comeback win, and that the defense was able to hold out. This wasn't the best version of the Ram, but a win is a win is a win. The run defense continues to drive fans crazy as the Rams looked like they were able to do anything they wanted on the ground. But the pass rush and the secondary for the Seahawks definitely showed some great flashes. Tariq Woolen keeps getting tested, but came out ahead with his league-leading 6th interception. The team tries to take advantage of these final 5 weeks as they fight for the NFC West. This is the Hawkscast.net podcast. And gentlemen, we are going to go to topic number 1. Ross, I'm gonna give you the second shot at this one. We're gonna start with Zeb on this one, and this is a key one. Zeb, can we put to rest the quote-unquote Geno doesn't have a game-winning drive?
Quite literally, because he does now. And I have to say that was huge for me. It's kind of one of the things that I've harped on him on, is his seeming inability to finish. And he did it. He made it happen. I actually felt confident in him. I felt like he was going to be able to make it work, and he did. So now he's probably going to have to do some more, and hopefully that happens. But good on him to get that done, despite whatever the circumstances may have been surrounding this game and who was healthy and who's not. He won the game when it mattered, and it was great. I'm extra glad that he got that touchdown to DK too, because DK played like a man this weekend, and he deserved that touchdown. So it was awesome.
So Tony chiming in says the first one in like 7 years. To be fair, he's only started like 14 games in that span, so it's not like he's had all the chances.
I was talking about during the game. They had such a misleading stat. They're like, he hasn't had a game-winning drive in 8 years. I'm like, well, yeah, but he sat on the bench for 6.5 of those.
Yeah, I mean,
but he also hasn't really finished for us in those types of situations.
So of the past 4 games, so this is the 5th game that it's a 1-score game and he has the ball in his hands. This is the first time he's won. Now, in the last game, he was able to score and get the go-ahead score with 5 minutes left. But to Ross's point, it's about what happens under the 2 minutes. And the defense wasn't able to hold. The defense held this time, but obviously Seattle just did a really good job of milking the clock. I just want to go quickly in the second half. So the Seattle, these are the drives they had. 4 plays a fumble, 8 plays field goal, 7 plays interception, 11 plays field goal, 10 plays touchdown, and then they take the knee. So outside of the fumble and the interception, those 2 opportunities, the Seahawks were driving, but the fumble, I think Tyler Lockett needs to play that ball. He needs to just assume it's a live ball and not just let it run by him. The interception, Bobby just stole the ball and they gave it to him. But Ross, can we put to rest Geno doesn't have a game-winning drive? I think that's totally fine. For a week, I think I want to just kind of like paint a picture. We were talking during the game, we were chatting with each other, and we said, all right, this is the moment. And Ross, to your credit, said, like, I want Geno to prove me wrong. Whether you meant that facetiously or not, you put that statement out there. Did he prove you wrong for at least 1 week?
Yeah, I mean, yes, he did, and I'm happy, and I'm encouraged, but like the NFL, as opposed to college or high school, or whatever else, it's about consistency, right? So that doesn't mean you have to do everything 100% every single time, but I think I'll feel a little bit more comfortable when I've seen him do it like more than once. But I'm super encouraged because, like I said, for me, it wasn't just the fact that he hadn't done it, or like it was the fact that and I still am. I want to see it more than one time because I still have that concern more than just like a game-winning drive. What I was sort of getting at last week is that when it matters the absolute most, when it matters somewhat, he seems to elevate. The 4-minute drive, the 5-minute drive, like those second to last drives, cool. But once the pressure's turned all the way up, it doesn't seem not just that he doesn't quite get there. That seems to be when he reserves his biggest mistakes for up to this point, including last year and this year. And so to see him succeed in that situation when the pressure was on the highest and not fold and not give in was a lot. Is it everything? No, it's one time. And also I'd like to see like the body language still just like calm down just a little bit more. He gets a little excited. So I want him to be the person calming everyone else down in the huddle. I don't want to see Tyler Lockett looking at him and like looks like in the huddle like Tyler Lockett's going to like Geno take a breath. And he did it. He did it. It was great. I just want to see it again. Please let me see it again.
I don't remember that. What part of the game did you see Geno was like super animated?
It wasn't a big radio focus. It wasn't a big. It wasn't like they stopped and showed it. There's not like a big. Nobody made a big deal of it. But you can see like in the huddle. It's not everybody looking to Geno and Geno saying, "Hey, we got this." Look at the huddle. Watch the huddles. There's people like looking at Lockett sometimes, and there's Lockett coming over real quick, and like it's Lockett. Normally he's on the opposite side of the huddle, but there's like a huddle where he moves over, and he's in the huddle next to Geno, and he's got his arm on Geno, and he's like, so he's kind of helping out a little bit there. And that's cool. That's fine. Like Lockett is far and away the most experienced person on the offense now, right? The old man at 29. I mean, Geno's older, but he doesn't have the playing experience. He doesn't maybe have some of that, street cred or whatever. So it's the two old dudes in the huddle talking. Maybe that's all it was.
Do you think that there's a component of the fact that Tyler's the captain on the team?
I mean, well, that speaks to the situation, though, doesn't it? Normally, when you've got a 32-year-old starting quarterback, you don't even have to take the vote. He's the captain. But in our situation, because of Geno's career path and career trajectory, it's Lockett. Lockett is the captain. And so, but if I want to be looking forward to the future and I want to have full confidence, again, I'm not trying to downplay what he did. He 100% did. I feel 85% better. I'm just saying it's the NFL. You can't just do it once, right? It's consistency. That's the big thing. There's Will Fuller, that great wide receiver. He's out of the league now because he can't consistently do it. You have to do it week, and it's now your job. You're not a student athlete. It's now your job, and I have to do my job every day, and Tony has to do his job every day, and even Zeb has to do his job every day. So, I think you do too, Sammy.
We'll see.
So that's the thing. So that's all I want to say. It's like, yeah, I've seen it once, and so I know he can do it. So I know you can do it. That's great. That's a good hurdle. That's a good hurdle to overcome. I know you can do it. Now just show it to me that make it so it's not something I have to put on my podcast as a topic every week. Make it so it's just something we just know. You know what I mean?
So
like he did it, so it's so noteworthy that we're talking about it 2 weeks in a row. So let's make it so it's not noteworthy. Let's talk about how other things about how great he is, all right? And that's all I want. I want to get to the point where we're like, we don't even stress about it. But like once upon a time, remember 10 a.m. games, and we'd all freak out because it's a 10 a.m. game.
The Holmgren era, yeah,
right. The Holmgren era. But and then we were so traumatized by it. By the first 3-4 years of Carol's era, it's still something we would talk about every week. Oh my God, it's a 10 a.m. game, and now we don't even mention it.
Yeah,
that's what I want. I don't even have to worry about it. If Geno's got the ball with 2 minutes left and I need a field goal, I know he's going to get it. Because he can't. He can't be that guy. Everything else is in place. It's just the mental aspects. So as soon as that's done, man, I will agree with you guys and say, okay, give him the 35. That's
that's a great segue into what I would say. So I've always been definitely someone who's much more optimistic about Geno. Not that there's like a huge gap between what all of us think. But once you get to that point where like, oh yeah, Geno's automatic, like in a clutch game, Geno's going to be the guy, he's going to get us a score. If you get to that level, you are franchise $40 million a year quarterback. Because there's no quarterback that a team would allow to walk. If you could say like, hey, we're going to give you the ball, we're down a field goal, we're down a touchdown, we're down whatever, we've got 2 minutes and maybe a timeout or two. You need to drive down the field. If that quarterback is automatic, like what we used to see in Russell Wilson, then that guy's getting all the money in the world. No one would allow them to walk. That guy would get whatever he wanted. They would get their own office in the headquarters. They'd get to bring in Jake Heaps as their quarterback coach. They'd get to use the team facilities to record commercials for their team, Geno, whatever. So my point of all of this is I agree with almost everything both of you had said. But what it comes down to is all of this is just raising the price for Geno. Like, I remember when we were talking like week 1 or 2, it's like, oh, Geno's not playing so bad. Maybe he's worth bringing back for like a 2-year, $15 million a year contract. And now we're talking about like, man, we got to start thinking about like franchise tagging him as like the base level. And I know for not only a few of us, but like for a lot of people out there, to go from a near vet minimum salary to a guaranteed value of close to what a franchise tag makes, that's like a big gap for a lot of people. And I don't know if people
made themselves a lot of money with that drive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if we see, like, so we have 5 games left. The way that Seattle has with the tiebreakers, where it's a little bit kind of dicey because we have to win against the Niners, not this weekend, but next weekend. But the Niners are 4-0 in the division, and we're 3-1. So if we beat the Niners, we'll be 1-1, so it'll go down to division record. We need San Francisco to lose 2 division games in the NFC West and for Seattle to win out. So go 5-1 in the division. San Francisco finishes 4-2. Even with the same record, we would win the tiebreaker. Once it goes beyond division West, NFC West record, it comes down to common opponents, and that's where Seattle loses the edge. So if Seattle wants
I feel like you're
to win
skipping ahead in our.
I know.
I feel like you're
I'm just saying. If Geno's the guy that gets you all of those wins that you need to get, and everything lines up well, it doesn't even matter about Geno and the game-winning drives. Geno's now the guy that's led you to a division when everyone thought you would be battling for the number 1 pick overall. And I think that in itself is amazing. And if he continues with this trend, the game-winning drives won't matter because it's about, well, at the end of the year, we're a 10-plus win team, and you just won the division. Man, you gotta keep him. You gotta keep him locked up because your success is because he's here. It's not because our running game is great. It's not because our defense is great. It's because Geno's got the ball in his hands and he's doing great things with it.
What's also exciting is that a lot of the key pieces, besides Geno, are either already locked in or they're on super cheap rookie contracts, and we're about to get 3 or 4 more quality rookies with next year's draft. Yeah. So we can actually we don't even have to choose, right? Necessarily, like I've long argued, you don't necessarily need to sign this super premium quarterback because you can use that money for other stuff and still put together a team, but we don't have to.
No, because you're flush with draft picks.
Yeah, and we have a starting left corner, left tackle. That's a premium position, but he's on a 5-year deal. Your first rounder, and our right tackle's on a 4-year deal, rookie contract.
Yeah.
Our running back, you're on a 4-year deal. We're not going to have to pay these dudes for a while. So if you sign Geno for 2 or 3 years, this seems like a really good window.
It's a really good window. We have to move ahead. We're going to go to topic number 2. Ross, I want to kick it off to you. What's the bigger concern, the run defense or our lack of healthy running backs?
Yes.
Agreed. All right, topic number 3.
For this week or for this season?
However you want to answer the question. It's an open forum for you.
I mean, it doesn't seem like anybody's out. So for a weekend, I mean, we're playing Carolina, so for a week we can roll with Jones, who's not efficient, but whatever, and we can roll with Homer. I mean, maybe I'm a homer for saying Homer's okay, but Homer on, man. So I'm actually a little bit more worried about the defense, but I watched and like Pete Carroll talked about, they made some adjustments after the second drive last Sunday, and it made a difference. Like, they didn't like suddenly become like, you know, the Great Wall of China or something, but I don't know. Like, it didn't bother me like last week, like because I felt like it was like sort of a conscious choice in some cases. Like, you can only focus on so many things. So I guess I'm saying I'm more concerned about the run defense, but remember last week we talked about are these patterns, and I kind of decided it's not really a pattern. I don't the Tampa Bay game and the next game, I don't actually now see it as a pattern. I think that certain choices went certain directions, and that put us at a disadvantage. But I don't think actually run defense is back into like crisis mode. I think if they use like what they call their Boston adjustments on things, and all of a sudden, and remember, like, I think Ryan Neal missing last game was a bigger deal than maybe we're thinking. Ryan Neal can move up into a box to strong safety, but also still has the fleet of foot and the savvy enough to still cover and pick up. And his backup is maybe not. But they did do that. I mean, they started bringing up the safeties after 3 or 4 drives, and it was different. Like, they didn't score like 1 billion points.
Yeah, they only scored twice in the second half. A field goal ended that touchdown.
Right, and that was partly because of some of the adjustments they made, and then also, so I'm not feeling like, I know on paper this week they're both in crisis, but like with how Geno's playing, and how the line is doing, I feel like we can get by for a game with Travis Homer and that Tony Jones dude. Tony, shout out.
Shout out Tony.
I mean, he's like a refugee from the Dallas Cowboys, but that doesn't mean he's terrible. The Cowboys were flush with talent at the running back position, right?
Yeah, Tony needs to start wearing goggles. He cannot rely on contacts if they're going to get hit out.
Chuck Muncie goggles?
Yeah.
Do you guys know what Chuck Muncie is? No.
I don't know who that is, but the name sounds familiar. I assume it's like the goggles that like James Wooden
He was like an amazing running back for the Saints and the Chargers in the late 70s and early 80s, and like totally coked out. Like just totally coked out, but he was amazing. But he was cool. Anyway, look that dude up. Chuck Muncie was amazing. Yeah, he should get the Chuck Muncie goggles. Totally. Eric Dickerson goggles as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He wore them. Yeah, he should get goggles. Anyway, that's my take. I'm not worried about either, actually.
Interesting. That is certainly a take. Zeb, what about you? Do you have a concern between the run defense or a lack of healthy running backs?
I'm definitely concerned about both, but I think I'm slightly more concerned about the run defense. Not necessarily for the same reasons. I kind of feel like our passing offense is prolific enough that we can still win with a moderate running game. I mean, it's great to have those home run threats out there, guys like Penny and Kenny. That's awesome. But like look what they did when we have to throw. Look how many weapons we have, and look how good Geno still is at making it happen. So I feel like we're able to make up for the running backs in at least here and there, like in parts. Like you need guys that are healthy enough to play, but like even just like Tony Jones, obviously he had like 14 yards on 7 carries. That's not great, but it was enough to know that they had to, we were still going to try to run the ball no matter who's back there. So they had to account for that, and then Geno was kind of able to slice and dice them, and we got one of the best wide receiver combos in the league and 47 highly capable tight ends. Lots of stuff there to do with the ball on offense. So the defense, yeah, it wasn't as bad this week, and maybe as it was the week or two before, but they still got a lot of yards on us. And while maybe they tightened things up throughout the game to a certain degree, it does. Do you really see long-term solutions there for this season? I think it's going to continue to be something that we have to be concerned about for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
does that imply? So I have a question for Zeb. So we all like there's certain positions of football that lend themselves to being like the fan favorite, like fullback, and like the lunch pill dudes, right? And it's like the defensive tackle. Like, so we talk about how we love Monet, how we like, like there can't be a week that goes by where the announcers don't like, oh, Al Woods, oh, big Al Woods, okay, but run defense starts up front. So even though we evaluate and we like Monet and Al Woods, if you think we're super like kind of screwed with our run defense, it's not going to get better. Is that an indictment of those two people?
I mean, I think we like those guys, but I don't think that.
Do you think they actually suck though?
Confused that they're not upgradable, those positions,
right?
So like they're better to go drinking with than to start on their team.
Yeah, but I think they're capable, and I don't know how much of this has to do with their individual talents versus scheme and game plan and all that. You'd think if it was more scheme related, we would be able to make those adjustments and tighten things up, but they still put almost 200 yards on us on the ground. So something isn't working right.
Yeah, right. My answer kind of leads us into topic number 3, which is we'll talk about in a second. But I think the long-term season view that I would look at for this question, what's a bigger concern, our run defense or our lack of healthy running backs? I think it is the run defense, because a team that's willing to commit to the run, like what we saw with Tampa, what we saw with the Las Vegas Raiders, and really what we saw with LA, there is a chance that, we could get really burned. Geno's been amazing. Geno tossed the ball 39 times last week. He was 28 for 39, which is an amazing number. He had 3 touchdowns, 116.1 quarterback rating. We only ran the ball when it wasn't Geno 20 times. So we're consistently passing way more than we are running. And this is not to say this week there was a clear aberration with the fact that we had injuries at our running back. We didn't have any depth that day. But that run defense, I feel that is going to be our biggest vulnerability. Not only for this upcoming game, but, we have the Niners in 2 weeks. They don't have a quarterback. They're going to play Brock Purdy. He's Mr. Irreverent. But they're sure going to run the ball a ton. And I think that is a concern, because at least with the way that I think Seattle has shown they can win, it can't be so one-dimensional. That's what we always were railing against Russ. It's like, it doesn't always have to be a 30-yard bomb. Geno, it's matriculating down the field, but it's still the same thing. You get 2 interceptions and 2 incompletes, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and long. That's much harder to complete than it is, 3rd and 3, where you have the run as a viable opportunity, where you have play action, where you have all these things at your disposal. But when it's 3rd and long, it's kind of obvious, okay, well, this is a passing opportunity. Your blitzers are going to pin their ears back and they're going to come for the quarterback, and you might not have the best pass protection, and that's where you could get burned. So I feel that makes us more vulnerable than having healthy running backs, because I think Geno's playing so well, and he's doing it in so many different ways. It's not just like deep bombs to DK or to Tyler. It's not just like these intermediate throws. He's doing it. Everything is really well. So I'm more concerned about the run defense and what that means for our remaining schedule.
I concur.
You guys are downers. Running backs don't matter.
I wanted to go there, but then I didn't want to start screaming at people on Twitter, because the whole idea that running backs don't matter is such a flawed logic. That's like saying my toes don't matter. It's like, they obviously have some value in your ability to function as a human, because if you didn't need them, no one would have toes. So
I have a quick Geno Smith trivia question for you. What is Geno Smith's real first name?
Is it Eugene?
Yes, it is. What's his middle name?
I don't know his middle name.
His middle name is Cyril.
Okay.
And by the way, he's a third, which is funny he doesn't put that up, because that's a big thing then if I'm putting the third, right? Like junior, the third. He's actually Eugene Cyril Smith the third. And I kind of wish he would go by Eugene, because I don't like calling him Geno.
You know what it could be, and this is something that I'm not an expert in. It's when you don't go by like the full name. That's why you don't go by the third. Like if he always went by Eugene Cyril Smith,
that might be it.
Then he would say, but because his dad is Eugene and he's Geno, and maybe his grandpa is Eugene, that's why he doesn't go by the third.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe.
Anyway,
Tony would know about this. Well, ask Tony. Tony named his kid after himself.
Yeah, and his son goes by Anthony instead of Tony, if I recall correctly. But Tony says,
I think it's to distinguish.
Is it different?
I think I think that's just so they can distinguish.
Right.
Because otherwise everybody's like going, yes. In the house.
Tony says his son has a different middle name, so technically he can't be a junior because
he can't be a junior.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't realize that.
Anyway,
okay.
Well, let's move on. I'm
feeling very educated on the junior and the third process. Thank you, Geno, for bringing that into my life.
Genealogy time on the Hawks.
Geno's genealogy.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to topic number 3. This is the Hawks Cast Corner. Zeb, can the Seahawks secure the NFC West? They have 5 games. They have a game remaining against the Niners in 2 weeks. They have the Rams to close out their season at the end of the year to try and overtake the Niners. Should they be tied with the same record, they could take a division lead if the Niners lose to. But can the Seahawks secure the West?
They can.
Are you confident? That's maybe the more important.
That was not a confident voice.
I am not super
confident. Project that voice out.
I think we have an interesting schedule coming up. I think that whether or not we can beat the 49ers is going to play a big role. I think that might be the most important thing, is if we can beat them, that puts us in a great position. If we can't, it's going to be a super tough road. Now, they're traveling their own super tough road at this point. They've had the worst luck this season. But somehow they kind of keep doing well, and they got that strong defense. So looking at our schedule, it's interesting. There's a lot of different things that could happen there. It's going to be tough no matter what. But I think that's really the key. The key is, can we beat the 49ers? And if we do, I think that puts us in a great position to get this division. And even if we don't get the division, I still think we have a real good shot at making the playoffs. But obviously the division is the goal. They're right there in front of us 2 weeks from now or whenever it is, Thursday night. I think we'll know. We'll know at the end of Thursday night what the rest of the season is what the division's probably going to look like.
Wait, is the 49ers game a Thursday night game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday for me?
Yeah. It's the day before my trip.
Oh, right. Oh, dude, you missed. You could have watched the game with me over here. What are you doing?
Blame the vacation schedule.
Because that's one of the few games, and when it's a night game, there, man, it's a human time. Like, I can watch those games with people. Like, it'll be at 10:15 in the morning. I mean, it's not my favorite.
All right, well, Ross, what about you? Can the Seahawks secure the West?
Man, so I guess this comes down to talking about Purdy, right? What do we think of
Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant? Now,
if you have kept our line chats, if you go all the way back to August, you're going to find a line chat where I said, damn, the 49ers last draft pick, Purdy, looks pretty good. So he does look pretty good, and Purdy looks pretty good. Ow.
He looks like a insurance salesman. He does not look like a football guy.
Well, a lot of quarterbacks don't look like football guys. I mean, Garoppolo doesn't. He looks like he should be like an underwear model for JCPenney's catalog, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's got like borderline good looks. Like he looks good, but not like runway good. Like JCPenney's kind of like good. But anyway, like so let's lay it out. 49ers are playing the Buccaneers, who beat us, Then they play us. Then they play the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Cardinals. So Buccaneers, we just saw like, man, they're resilient. They started the season really bad, and there's like some bias and I think it left over in our minds because even when we lost, we felt like we should have won. But the Buccaneers are coming around. They're actually peaking now. They're getting better, right?
Right.
They're playing us, and okay, we're a little bit hard to read. We lost those 2 games, but then we've won a game. We can win any week, but we can lose any week. Let's just lay us to that for now. Then 49ers are going to play the Commanders, which again is another team we tend to think suck, but they don't suck.
I don't think the Commanders suck.
No, like they have beat some legit teams. They've come around. They're like on a mini roll right now. The Raiders, we were embarrassed because we lost to them. We're like, gosh, these people suck. That dude with the eyeliner was crying a couple weeks ago. How did we lose? But look out, they've won 3 in a row now, and they've done really well with those 3 in a row. Like they're scoring points, they're motivated, and so that's not a rollover for the 49ers either, in my opinion. And then there's the Cardinals, and that's a division game, and so who knows? But I mean, the 49ers will probably be super motivated because it's probably going to come down to that week for like stuff. But so they won't be sitting people. But I mean, 49ers have a difficult schedule, and so do we. There's no gimmies. So we've got a chance. I don't think that people who celebrated immediately seeing like Purdy's going to start all their games have seen him play. But at the same time, once there's more film on him, he does have certain limitations. He can't make all the throws. If you watch the last game, I mean, he did great. And like they threw the ball a ton considering it's their Mr. I don't even like saying Mr. Irrelevant because Mr. Irrelevant was back when it was a 12 or a 15 round draft. It's 7th round, everybody's relevant, right?
I mean, if you can get into the game, you're relevant. So,
I mean, how often even does like a 7th rounder not make a team at all anymore? Like it's not like so. Anyway, he's not as bad as some people are thinking. He doesn't look exactly like a rookie, but more than that, I think after there's a little bit more tape on it, teams will be able to scheme against him because he's not a quarterback who can make all the throws. That's why he was, 7th round pick. His arm is limited. He's a really smart dude. He's one of these classic dudes that's going to be like a backup quarterback for like 10 years, and then he's going to go into coaching. And when I'm an old man, like we're going to hear him out as a head coach. He's one of those like really cerebral dudes. But yeah, he's limited. So once there's tape, I feel like better, and I feel like the Cardinals and the Seahawks and some of these like Tampa Bay Buccaneers may be in a little bit of a tough spot this week because like that dude just playing with house money. He never expected to start this year. He's going to be loose and just going to be playing, man. And nobody's going to know what he can do at this level. He's like 6'1", maybe just a hair under, 208 pounds. He's not really a big dude. He's a Drew Brees. He's a guy who probably owes part of his career to Russell Wilson. Like before Russell Wilson and partly Drew Brees, he would not have even been drafted. Like now, there's a little bit more open mind towards people his size. But we'll see. I think the 49ers could lose a couple of these games down the stretch, and if we play how we can play, I think there's every chance. I would say there's a 40% chance we win the division.
40%? That's actually pretty high, I would say.
Yeah. Because I think there's a chance, like, Purdy plays pretty decent for what he is, but just can't quite win. Like, it's going to be tough, like, for Purdy to beat Brady. It's going to be hard for them to, like, beat us, I think, actually. I think they're going to have between the Commanders and the Raiders, I think they win one of those games. And then I think they win the Cardinals. So, like, it's just going to come down to, like, the next 3 games, really. 3-4 games, right?
Right.
Obviously, that's almost the whole thing. But if Seattle can play to their potential and not make the dumb, like, don't put Monet inactive and just, like, telegraph your game plan or telegraph what you're expecting. If we don't make dumb mistakes like that, I'm interested to think, and I really do think 40% chance that we overcome them.
Interesting. I think that, yeah, obviously it's possible. They're in contention to get a playoff spot. They're currently the 7 seed. It really sucks that the Giants and the Commanders tied because having the tiebreaker over the Giants would have been awesome, but the tie kind of totally negates that. But Tony's saying Washington D is legit, offense is defense, and that I don't know if he was saying that Washington will beat Arizona, but he was saying someone's going to beat Arizona, which not really surprising. Like
like we get the Rams again and we get the Jets, but the Jets aren't a walkover anymore. The biggest thing also, the Chiefs sitting right in the middle of our 5 games.
Right. I think
that's in their stadium on Christmas. Well, my Christmas.
Yeah, it's that game is. I think most of us are chalking that up as a loss for the Seahawks. But the 4 games, every other 4, the other 4 games, none of them are gimmies, but none of them are impossible games to win. I think that's what makes this end of the year so important. But that also puts a lot more stress on Seattle, because to get to 10 wins, which seems to be the number that will get you into the playoffs, a 10-7 record, which would be amazing, you have to win 3 of your 4 games against the Panthers, the Niners, the Jets, and then the Rams. The Rams, they don't have a whole lot to play for. They don't have great draft picks, so losing or
they've got Baker Mayfield.
Losing or winning really doesn't help them. Like, you know, I don't think they're going to just roll over, but it's not a team that is like nothing to play for as well. The Jets, I don't think they're a great team, but if they roll out, you know, Zach Wilson, I think that will be great, but you know, Mike White might be their guy for the rest of the year, and that's a very different team all of a sudden. I think the fact that we can still talk about the Seahawks as a potential playoff contender in Week 14 is something that most of us would not have expected. I go back to, I had my ceiling at 9 wins, and the fact that we are 2 wins away from that, that's pretty amazing. So I think the Seahawks can win the West. It does require that they kind of take it a week at a time, and this is a game that can really prove that against a team that they should win on paper, but any given Sunday definitely could come into play. All right. Final thoughts on the NFC West before we go to topic number 4.
Nothing. I got nothing.
Thunk. Right. Who'd have thunk?
All right, let's go to topic number 4, the Carolina Panthers. And this is a very different Carolina Panthers, because all the Carolina Panthers that we've faced over the years, Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly, Christian McCaffrey, Ron Rivera, all those guys are gone. It's a totally different team. But Ross, will the Seahawks split the NFC South, because they are currently 1-2 against the NFC South this year, or will the Panthers run all over us? How do you see this game playing out, and how would Seattle win? How would Carolina win?
It might be another game where we need some heart medication, because I feel like they're going to, they'll have some success with the run. That helps you control the clock. That helps shorten the game. I see it kind of looking a little bit similar to last week, to be honest. We have the talent advantage over them, in my opinion. But, we've seen like scheme and smart play can mitigate that to some degree. And it's funny, like, once they lost their quote unquote best player, they've played a lot better. Their running game is better once they lost CMC.
Yeah, maybe because he's not that good.
I mean, this happens quite a bit. It feels like teams like have added by subtraction quite a bit. We're better this year than last year, aren't we?
Yeah,
it's weird. So I see a similar game. They're going to try to run. We're going to try to stop it. We'll have some success, but not complete success, because they're going to commit to it. They have some decent receivers. Obviously, DJ Moore used to be quarterback proof, and we'll see how he goes.
He's playing a lot better with Sam Darnold than anyone else.
Yeah. And they also have Terrace Marshall, who's come around. He was super disappointed with last year. Big disappointment with the first half this year, but he also seems to be coming around a little bit. And they brought in that gadget guy. I forget his name. It was sort of a Russian-sounding name. Chenault's like French last name.
Chenault. Yeah, Chenault Jr.
Chenault or whatever. That guy. that guy, like gadget player, but he can do some things. So that's why they'll have some success with running, like because you have to watch out for the fly sweep for them. You have to respect DJ Moore. It doesn't even matter if he's the only receiver out there. You have to respect him because that guy, he's super legit and super underrated. So, I mean, I expect Tariq Woolen to be on him most of the day. So they'll have some success because they can scheme things right, and it'll be a tight game. But I think we should come out ahead.
So their last game, real quick, Zeb, was against the Denver Broncos, and they won that game pretty handily. It was 23-3 before Russell Wilson scored a 1-yard touchdown with 3 minutes left. So it was a game that they were controlling handily, and they ran the ball 45 times to 19 throws. Is that a concern, Zeb?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, honestly, I've been looking forward to this game for 3 or 4 weeks now. For some reason, just what I've seen from the Panthers, which admittedly isn't a lot, it just looks like it's going to be a fun game. They're going to give us everything they got, and I think we're going to do the same. And I think it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be fun football. I'm expecting a lot of highlights out of this one. Well, highlights and lowlights for both teams. But yeah, the run defense concerns me, and the stat that you just brought up plays into that pretty well. So, I think we can win. I think we should win, but I think it's going to be difficult, and I think it's going to be entertaining. And I think the theme of this season is just how much entertaining football we've got to watch. So I think that's going to continue.
The point spread for this game is 3.5 points. Seattle is a 3.5 point favorite, which means it's almost a pick 'em because the home team usually gets about 3 points. So it will be interesting to see what this game is because, as both of you have mentioned, Carolina's not a great team. There's a reason why they're 4-8. They're not great at any one thing, but the thing that I feel like they could be good at is bad news for Seattle. Now, their defense is pretty bad. I'm not worried about Geno or our offense. I would love to make sure we had viable and healthy running backs to play on the field. But I think Geno would be fine. I think the offense will be fine. I am worried about if we have a scenario where the game is closer and we play tight because this is a game that we kind of get into our head oh, this is a cakewalk, that we will falter and this will be a very, very bad showing. Now, I don't think Seattle's shown that game. That's maybe just more of my own personal fear of what could happen because I'm so worried about that run defense. But you look at statistically every category. The only thing that the Panthers are really better than Seattle is points per game. They give up 22.2 points per game, but they only score 19.2. Seattle gives up 25.3, but we score 26.5. So we have more yards, we have better offense. Our running game is surprisingly almost as good as theirs. And yeah, the statistically, it looks like it should be an easy win for Seattle. And maybe that's why I'm afraid. Maybe I want to see a little bit more adversity. It's oh yeah, we really got to pick ourselves up this game. We can't rest on our laurels.
I mean, they don't have a quarterback, and that's a major disadvantage for them.
But if they don't pass the ball, does it really matter? If they can just keep getting 2 and 4 yards on the ground?
If we can securely bring if we can make a 7-8 man box and say come at us, and as long as because here's where somebody like Tariq Woolen helps because you can probably put him and with some attention from a role of safety, but not do true double coverage. Put Tariq Woolen on DJ Moore, and then I think you can put safely 8 in the box at first, at least at the beginning. And if they actually are able to accomplish something with the passing Okay, fair enough. But I think their lack of a quarterback, because I even respect the receivers, like I mentioned a minute ago, but I don't think that they can hit him. So you take away his primary, and then say, you know what? Yeah, here you go. Here's 8 guys in the box. We dare you to try to throw to DJ Moore. Go for it. And then if Tariq Woolen ends up with a pick or 2, so be it.
So
That's where it's going to go.
Sam Darnold is the projected starter for this game.
Yes.
He's got 164 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. That's who we are going to be facing.
Yeah, he's like a 57 or something 8% completion rate passer, dude. He got benched earlier this year, and
He,
even
didn't,
when
no,
they benched,
he only started 1 game. I remember Baker Mayfield started and PJ Walker started.
Well, I mean, like, let me put it this way: he didn't necessarily get benched, but he was on the roster, and they traded for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not necessarily benching, but it's not a great sign of confidence.
Their
Right.
leading receiver is DJ Moore with 46
Yes.
receptions. Everyone else has, obviously a lot of those receptions are gone with McCaffrey, but their next highest reception is 18, 17, 17, 14, and 11. So
Yeah.
they don't have a guy that's doing a great job of getting their wide receivers the ball.
Nope. And so, like, that means that's a big plus as far as us being able to try to stop their run. And and we can only do that because of who Tariq Woolen is and has become, and even Michael Jackson on the other side.
I know we're supposed to talk about the Panthers, but I do want to take a quick pivot to Tariq. I remember early in the season we were talking about, man, no one's going to throw to his side anymore, and he's gotten 2 interceptions in the last 2 games.
Well, one was a running back throwing the ball.
He still caught the ball. They still thought, hey, we're going to get it over this rookie. You didn't bite on that first Wildcat play, but we'll get him the second time.
He got another one last game, and I mean he blew it a couple. I mean, there was some crossing routes he didn't cover great last game, but he seemed to get better as the game went on. And you have to take your lumps and like learn, right? He's going to get better and better and better. He's learning that he's learning what his amazing speed can and can't do. He was kind of dragging on a couple crossing routes last game and like dragging a little bit too far behind, and it looks like he thought what he was going to do was bait somebody. But he's learning that even Wolford, who doesn't have an arm like you noted earlier, Sammy, even Wolford in the NFL is still an NFL quarterback, and he can still make that pass better than most college quarterbacks could. So he didn't have the time to catch up on those crossing routes. You could do that more on the deep routes because you can use your length, but on the crossing routes, he's got to learn to stay in tight.
Yeah, I agree. Final thoughts before we get into some predictions.
Sam Darnold. That's all.
Yeah. Former first-round pick, bench, traded for another first-round pick. It's a pretty bad career so far.
Yeah, not so good.
Before we get to our predictions, I want to ask, what was everyone's thought about DK motioning Jalen to follow him when he motioned from right to left?
I wish it was more obvious because that would have been like a super great forever meme. But the fact that you can't quite tell what he's doing, it's not a great visual, but it was really funny. It was hilarious.
And for him to get the game winner, I thought it was a great game for DK. 8 for 8, 120 yards and the game-winning touchdown. Like, that was not an easy catch either because Ramsey was all over him.
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect him to make the catch.
Yeah, it's almost that risky throw where you're throwing it into high traffic that if it's not secured, it gets popped up and then someone grabs it really easily.
Yeah, hell of a throw though.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into some predictions. Ross, I'm going to hit you up first. Final score: Panthers versus the Seahawks.
Let's 16-13.
16-13. Ooh, that's a low-scoring game.
Yikes. 27-17.
27. That's a little bit more comfortable. I'm happy with that. I think the offense is going to do well. I think they're going to score 28 points, and I think the Panthers are going to be a little limited. And even though they could run the ball, I think they're going to be... my hope is that they're chasing points, so it's going to be a 28-14 game Seahawks.
I like it.
Ross, we don't know who our running backs are going to be. We don't know how healthy all of them are. Homer apparently is going to be good to go. But over under 14.5 rushing attempts by our running backs. Over. Zab.
Over, not by much.
I hope that it's over. I'm not confident, but I will also go over as well. Ross, over under 31.5 passing attempts for Geno.
Under.
All right. Zeb?
I'll take the under also.
I'm going to go with the over. Even though I think the Seahawks are going to rush for more than 15 times, I still think they're going to pass the ball a crap ton. And Ross, over under 170.5 yards combined between Tyler and DK. Both of these guys are having, pretty solid years. They're not going to put out monster numbers, but combined 170.5 receiving yards.
I'm going to go under. I sense a big tight end game actually coming up.
I wouldn't mind that. Zeb, what about you? You feeling DK and Tyler blowing up again?
I mean, it's probably unlikely, but I'm going over because it's what I want, and what I want is important to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go over, but what I'm going to do is this is the first game where we really saw where both of them were getting the ball evenly, but there was a lot of plays where the ball they were clearing out the ball for each other. Like Tyler's first touchdown, DK just takes the guy and just takes him downfield, and it just opens everything up underneath for Tyler. I think instead what we're going to see is we're going to see whoever plays opposite, because Carolina has two corners. One's pretty shitty. Whoever lines up against that, they're the one that's going to have the monster day. So they're going to go over, but it's because it's going to be heavily weighted towards one of them, DK or Tyler.
I like it. Good insight.
Final prediction, Ross, over under 2.5 targets against Mr. Tariq Woolen. He only had 3 registered targets in the previous game. 1 catch, 2 deflections, and an interception.
I'm going to say over.
Yeah, Darnold's not smart enough to avoid him, and it will be his downfall. Over.
I'm going to say well under. I will be surprised if Tariq gets targeted at all this game, not because I don't think Darnold...
I just don't think Darnold's comfortable throwing to other people, looking at his numbers.
I think that a smart offensive coordinator, and again, we could put that in quotes, should not be testing Tariq Woolen. At this point, on anything, on a crossing route, on a drag route, sure, try and hit him underneath, and maybe, you think you'll get the angle or you'll get a pick play. But a post, a corner, a comeback, he's just doing such a good job with his recovery and his understanding of his length. I just don't think teams will be wise to press him like that. And gentlemen, those are our predictions for the day. That's our podcast.
What a show.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Before we get to some shout-outs, final thoughts?
Let's go out there and get this division.
Yeah, please.
That would be nice. It would be a great way to end 2022.
It really does feel a lot like 2012 to me. Like the fact that the Niners are a game ahead of us. We're coming down to the wire here. I think we played the Rams in the final week that season as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. That Christmas Eve versus the Chiefs is going to be a tough one.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it is time for some shout-outs. Gentlemen, who'd you like to shout out to this evening?
Shout out to Michael Bay, Ben Affleck, Josh Hartnett, Kate Beckinsale, Jennifer Garner, Alec Baldwin, Cuba Gooding Jr., John Voight, Tom Sizemore, and Dan Aykroyd, and the entire cast of.
Is that a Pearl Harbor thing?
Once I heard Michael Bay and Ben Affleck, I was like, oh, that's a Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, kudos to them.
Kudos to them.
The
Ouch.
3.5 hour love triangle interrupted by the attack on Pearl Harbor, I believe.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Ross, any shout outs?
Yeah, I have a couple. Shout out to, again, like I said last week, to all of Santa's elves who are working hard. Shout out to my friend Yumi, who has made me so proud the last couple of weeks. She's just been doing some amazing kick-ass stuff. It really got me through just a couple hard days, especially yesterday as well. Couldn't be doing this podcast today without her helping me yesterday.
Oh, shout out to Yumi then. Big shout out.
And shout out to Tony for keeping it real and keeping stuff going on in a little phone debate we had earlier today. We actually were able to keep it pretty calm for the first time in a couple of years. So thanks for that, Tony.
Cooler heads prevail. All right. Well, shout out to Tony and Birdfinger for chiming in on the chat. Shout out to Zeb and Ross. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast. We want you to check us out. Go to the website while it's around. Check us out on Twitter while you're not locked out at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. This is going to be a really fun game. This will be another sign of what are things to come, but I'm looking forward to it, and I wish you all a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.